All right, everybody, I think we'll start the event now. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and an introduction. My name is Loretta Zita. I'm the Director of Marketing here at HRAI. And I'd like to let everybody know that we will be recording this session and it will be available after the session along with a survey. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to use either the Q&A section or the chat. It's totally up to you. With that said, I'd like to thank you everyone for attending HRAI's webinar today on building relationships that last with Ed Wallace, Managing Director with Achieve Next Human Capital. Ed consults and speaks to corporations and associations across the globe with a client list that is the who's who of Fortune 500 companies. He's the author of Fairs to Friends, Creating Relational Capital, Business Relationships That Last, and his most recent, the #1 bestseller, The Relationship Engine. Ed was recently published in Harvard Business Review. We invite all attendees to network with Ed through his LinkedIn account at Ed Wallace 007, and you can find that in the chat section as well. But with that said, Ed, would you be able to, oh, you got your mic and your video on. Feel free to take the stage.
Well, thank you, Loretta. And let's also thank HRAI and Lorelei for letting me sharing your members with me today. It's great to be with everyone. This 55 minutes will go really quickly. And I'm going to tell you some stories, but link in with me. We do an awful lot on the sales side. And Ed Wallace 007, link in with me. You'll see we publish a whole bunch of things. I have a huge network of other people in the sales development business. So there's probably something I might share over the course of a week or a month that will benefit you. And so again, it's great to be with everybody. So why do you want to prove competitor? How do we competitor prove our business relationships? Everybody's working differently today. Now, I know your business is pretty much essential, but that doesn't mean that the decision maker might just not want to get on a Zoom with you rather than meeting in person. So we've got to find ways to be virtual. Our virtual muscles are not going to go away. I know Canada is just starting to open up again. This is another thing that sales professionals are struggling with. How do I do this virtually when that's the only way I can get involved in a conversation? That's the only way I can meet a new contractor. The contractor's driving around and maybe one of their F-150s or something, or one of their company trucks, and you're on a moving Zoom call. How do I create a great relationship there? I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but a high percentage of millennial on down people that you're working with today, they're checking you out on LinkedIn way before they engage with you. So get your LinkedIn's up to date, get at least a nice picture out there. And just like you have access to your customers a lot easier now, they have access, your competitors have the same access. So that's the tenets that we're building. We built this webinar around. I have a warm-up exercise for everybody. I'm gonna put up 4 different answers in a moment here, so to complete this sentence. So when you chat in, just chat in the number of the response. You don't have to type the whole response. And so people buy from people they. A, B, C, or D. I meant to say the letter, not the number. Chat in A, B, C, or D. Why do people buy stuff? Brad's first off with like. Michael came in with the same one. Luke says, no, okay, trust. I'm surprised no one, here comes the trusts. Loretta, the trust usually started off. That's interesting. Got a lot of trust coming in right now. Let's see if we get one or two more. So it looks like trust kind of took it, but believe it or not, we do an awful lot of research into business relationships. And one of the tenets we're going to talk about today is, how does your customer know that you understand what they're trying to accomplish in their business? How do they know that you've got their goals ahead of your own? Because in sales, we're typically stereotyped right off the bat that maybe our needs are ahead of the customer's needs. How do we quickly help them understand that? I'm going to tell you a story about a guy who changed my life and really helped me in my sales career here shortly. Nice little subjective warm-up, some objective data. Senior sales executives are asked, what's the key to your success? They respond at relationships. But these same executives who were so keen on relationships are not even getting 50% of the potential from their relationships. Open up the chat lines here. Why do you think that is? What is it about relationships that if you can just accept the premise, now we won't get into the data, but if you can just accept the premise, why are we not getting even 50% of the potential? Chat in a few responses. What's getting in the way? What's so difficult? Let's see what we have here. Okay. Good job, Brad. Right. They don't even know what we do. You have what they need, Brad. They just don't know it yet, right? That's one of my favorite lines. What else? What else gets in the way? What else gets in the way of us getting the most? Understanding what you can offer. Again, same, Sanal, similar. I hope I said your name correctly. There's no relationship there. How do we find a way in, Joel? I'm asking that rhetorically. That's the challenge. How do we find a way in? A lot of what we're going to talk about in the next 50 minutes now, roughly, is going to be how do we find a way in? How do we become that resource? And I'm just going to keep using contractor. I know you have other decision makers, but I'll just keep using contract. How about we don't have enough time? How about virtuality gets in the way? Sanal says, understanding how you can help them meet their goals with what you offer. Connecting, I have another quiz for everybody a little later about the buyer's expectation of what we know about their goals. And you're gonna be really surprised with how high the expectation is. Great points, Sanal. So a couple little funny slides. I hope you think they're funny. Albert Einstein, pretty smart person. I wonder what he would think today if he saw this. Just for fun, what do you think they're doing? Chat in a couple of responses. What do you think they're doing? I'm diverting from business relationships just slightly here. What are they doing? Sanal, Joel, what are they doing? What could they be doing? Right, they're actually texting other people. They're not listening to each other. Good one, Brad. What's the score? Mylene, they're talking to each other. Good one. He's out on Facebook or whatever. Maybe they're just filling out the survey for the restaurant so they get a discount. I don't know what they're thinking. Someone once said to me, maybe they're all related. Maybe they're brother and sisters. I always get a kick out of this one. The person closer, I'm closer to his age. I'm not his age. Has the phone, and probably his grandson has the big textbook. But interesting thing Albert Einstein said, probably in the 1940s, because he had passed on in 1952. But when he said that, I'm not sure if he actually had in mind the internet and the fact that there was a pandemic, still is, right? It's kind of winding down. And that we were going to have to get better at technology than he ever could have imagined, because he thought it made us a generation of idiots. We actually have to un-idiot ourselves when it comes to technology. So as we talk about the concepts, and I tell some stories today, try to keep going back and forth to how this impacts things when you're doing it virtually. And I'll try to point that out. So I have a story for everybody. I call this a story about a human value proposition. And I'll take you back to my early days in sales. That would have been in the early 1990s. So I've been in sales for quite a while. And I had a sales territory back then. So I'm a CPA. I'm not sure if it's CPA in Canada or chartered accountant, I forget, but I always like to say I'm a recovering CPA. And the way I learned to recover from being an accountant was to go into sales. I don't see any ha-has coming across the screen there, Loretta, so I don't know if that joke really went over very well. I expected somebody to say that's a good one. Anyway, thank you. Anyway, so I was given a sales territory. I'm from Philadelphia, by the way. I was given a sales territory in the Midwest of the United States. And that meant I had to get into my sales territory physically every single week. So I set up a schedule where I left my home at 5 a.m., took a taxi to the airport, came back on a Tuesday, let's say, and came back on a Thursday afternoon. I caught up on things Friday. And it's just my routine. I'm doing it every week. The reason I left our home at 5 a.m. was our infant son, Brett. He and my wife, Laurie, had just started sleeping through the night. So I would try to get out of the house without causing any disturbance. So it's a typical Tuesday morning. I'm packing my bag and I get distracted. And sure enough, the cab driver comes in, he rings the doorbell. I ran to the door, the screen door. It was the summertime. I asked him not to ring again. He just took my bag and started wheeling towards the taxi. I gently closed the door behind me, started following him down the driveway. Now, I was taking a company called the Bennett Taxi Cab Service. These were metered taxi cabs back then. And so if you can picture a big white car with Bennett written on the door in like a green kind of script writing. So I'm expecting the Bennett cab. Well, as I'm approaching the taxi, I'm half asleep. This guy showed up in a London taxi, which that was pretty cool. It got my attention in the Philadelphia suburbs. And as I'm approaching the cab, the guy's holding the door open for me. You know, most drivers, first of all, they weren't driving a London cab. They were driving the big white Bennett cab. And most of them just blew the horn or disturbed the baby. This guy was holding the door. And as he was coming around after he closed the door, I noticed several things that were distinctive about this experience, that competitor-proof this guy, and that have me here today, all these years later. So the first thing I noticed, beautiful leather seats. The bench seats were pushed back. There was plenty of leg room, no plastic seats. Everything was really clean, no music playing, no sports station, no traffic report. On the seat next to me, little plastic bottle of water. I think this guy thought of everything. So he comes around, he gets in, and he extends his hand and he says, "Good morning, Ed. My name is Max. How you doing today?" And as I'm reaching for his hand, I'm thinking, how did this fella get my name? And there's a very good close caricature of the real Max. So for the next half an hour, this guy learns an awful lot about me. He learns about my goals and aspirations in sales. He learns I'm struggling at sales, thinking about going back to accounting. He learns about our infant son, Brett, how important it is for my wife, Laurie, and Brett not to be disturbed when the driver comes to the house in the morning. And here's what he was really great at: asking the right questions. So here's the way the first ride went. So Ed, what do you do? I'm in sales. What do you sell? Software. And where do you do that? In the Midwest. Pretty typical questions that any half-interested cab driver might ask. Now I'm going to ask you to respond on this one. Here's his fourth question. Ed, do you have a sales territory or do you sell to named accounts? Are you more of an account manager? Do you have a sales territory or do you sell to named accounts? What do you think I'm thinking when a cab driver asks me that question? Chat in what might have been going through 30-some-year-old salesman Eddie's head. Do you have a territory or do you sell to named accounts? Maybe he was in sales before. Yep. Anything else? Right. He was really in sales, wasn't he, Sonal? He probably was in sales at that moment, if you think about it. I was just surprised because I didn't expect to get that question from a cab driver. Here's his next question. Ed, do you have a sales territory or do you sell? No, tell me about your quota. My quota. I've got one. He said, well, how is it constructed? How much of your business comes from existing customers? How much comes from new friends? Are you a hunter or a farmer? And I had never heard those terms in sales vernacular before. I said, I'm supposed to be a hunter, Max. I haven't been doing really well there, and I haven't figured out the customer formula yet. He said, you know, Ed, those existing customers are probably much more profitable for you and your business. Now, this was in like 1991. I just shared with you data from 2015 about how important our existing relationships are. And we're not getting as much out of them today. And Max was talking about this all those years earlier. Hey, Robert, he might have been a retired sales. I'm going to tell you what he was in a little bit here. I go, yes, they are, Max. And on and on. And I'm sure more and more with this cab driver who knows a lot about life, business, sales. We get to the airport. I give him a great tip. Max, that was great. I'll see you next Tuesday at 5 a.m. And that little smile you see turned upside down. He said, you know, Ed, I can't take you next week. And I said, well, did I offend you, Max? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Nothing like that. I have a lot of fairs. I have a lot of friends. And it takes me a few weeks to work a new friend into the rotation. Rotation. This is a $30 ride back then to the airport. It's a commodity. Anybody could deliver it. The rotation. Of course, I didn't say that. I said, you can't fit me in next week. He said, I have a lot of friends. But hold on, Max. When are you available? I'm going to ask this again. This is rhetorical. Was Max selling or was I buying? And if we were in a room and I could see everyone, I'd say, how many of you like to be sold? Maybe one or two people might raise their hand because they like to see other people's approaches. How many of you like to buy stuff? We'd all raise our hands. Maybe some of us might raise two hands. How do we create an experience for our customers where they're buying and we're not selling? Because it's a lot easier when people are buying than when we're selling. Max created an experience in a taxi cab, a commodity, where people were buying and we were scheduling around him. So I said, when are you available? He pulled out a calendar, started flipping through pages there on the Philadelphia airport curb. And he said, how about the Thursday in 2 weeks from now, Thursday, 2 weeks plus from now? I said, that's Labor Day weekend here in the States. I'll take it. So I changed my schedule Thursday, coming back from Chicago on a very busy travel Friday in the summertime. He wrote it down. He went his own mind. Fast forward 3 weeks. Baby's asleep. Mommy's asleep. When Max came to the door, what do you think he did not do? Chat in what he did not do. What do you think he did not do? You remembered, right, Sonal? He listened, remembered, and cared about the answers, Brad. And I've trained 29,000 sales professionals in my business here. I've worked with about 400 or 500 companies, probably 50 associations. Our customers are really looking for thoughtfulness. They're really looking for thoughtfulness. They're looking for expertise and on-time delivery and all that kind of stuff. But they're looking, people essentially buy from people who share their goals. And that's where the thoughtfulness comes in. So I'm interviewing Max this time. We're in the car, we're driving to the airport. Who fills up your taxi? I had to wait almost 3 weeks. It's a ride to the airport at 5 a.m. in the summertime. He said, well, a lot of the local executives ride around with me. And he was kind of humble about that. I said, well, who else? He goes, well, salespeople like you going back and forth. Families, when they go on vacation, the kids love to ride with Uncle Max. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, you know, sometimes children are afraid to fly. And I try to take the pressure off the parents and make it fun for the kids. And I've gotten so busy I started a tour company for the elderly people from the nursing homes. I take them into the city in Philadelphia on weekends. I'm thinking, who is this guy? All of a sudden, he appears on my doorstep one day. I said, Max, what's the secret to success? I interrupted him right there. He held his fingers this far apart, and I can still see him squinting in the mirror. He says, the little things that turn fairs into friends, the little extras, Ed. And I said, well, is it the London taxi? And how clean it is, and it's a London taxi, and it's quiet. Is it the knowledge of sales? Is it the listen, remembering, caring about the answers, gently tapping on the screen door? And I listed several more, and he answered me, yes. What did Max mean by yes? What do you think he meant by yes? I wanted a specific answer about what the little thing was. And he said, yes. That's right. So now he distinguished himself. I call that distinguishing what you typed in there. It's everything, Michael, because we don't know what's going to connect to what I call the relational GPS of that person, which is a concept I'm going to share with you shortly here. Everyone has goals, passions, and struggles. And I think you'll leave this webinar with an understanding of that and be able to use that this afternoon if you're still working the rest of the day today. Good answer, Robert. It's a combination of things, but it's getting to that person's goals, passions, and struggles. So Max called, let's park Max for a minute. He called those secrets the little extras that turn fairs into friends. I call that, so I have a model here for you to start thinking about your taxi cab ride. You look down the front of the engine and it's like, what are the things that drive your taxi? Now, we don't have time today to have you fill in all your things. I have a quick thing that I'm going to ask you to fill in. You know, you can just chat it in. And then what's slowing you down? What would you call your taxi cab? So if we were doing an extended training session, you would actually be building your ride. But the point I want to make today is people are riding around in your taxi cab all day long. Every interaction you have, whether it be with a customer, whether it be with some other person involved with the customer, whether it be the end customer of the contractor, whether it be someone internally, every text, every email, every communication, every Zoom, they're riding around your cab. What's that experience like? How do you distinguish yourself in a business that's kind of commoditized? So real quick exercise, chat in a little thing you do, since we're talking about the little extras, that you think makes a big difference with people. You can take a 30 seconds here, think about that. What's a little thing? It could be simple as smiling on a Zoom. It doesn't have to be this exotic, extravagant thing. What do you do that you think makes a difference up there north of the border? How do you distinguish yourself? Stay connected, answer emails promptly. Says something about your cab ride, Brad, right? Hey, Kenneth, nice to hear from you. You're on here now. Show them your basement. So my sense is you have a pretty interesting basement that you do your meetings from. Kenneth, can you chat that in? Is that what you're talking about there? Is there something about your basement that you can share with us? I love the authenticity of it. I'm going to give Kenneth a chance to respond. Oh, you have a drum studio. That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to talk about authentic Zoom conversations. So think about even the way you respond to an email. All of that goes to your taxi cab ride. The way you start people off when you're first, introducing yourself, the way you make a comment about what you saw on their LinkedIn or whatever you're doing to build rapport with them, the length of your emails, or however else you do. One of the things that again, with the pandemic, things have been difficult, but handwritten notes is a great way to have an impact on people. Most of us don't get anything handwritten these days. So think about a handwritten note. We're going to provide everybody with an e-version of my book that you saw on the cover page. So there's a whole little section in there on handwritten notes and how less than 1% of the mail people receive today is handwritten. I'm just checking our time. We're doing great. Okay, so let's park our taxis. Let's talk about relational capital. Max said it's little things. I call that relational capital. Chat in the definition of a relationship. What is a relationship? What is it? Before I keep using the term, how would you define a relationship? Not that easy, Loretta. What's a relationship? You're on here today to, very good, Robert. It's two parties come together around something in common. Great job. And mutual trust results from that, Kenneth. We've got to come together around something in common first. So great answers, guys. So chat in the answer to this, because we're going to talk about the quality of credibility here. What's the definition of credibility? Job, Michael. It is the way two or more people are connected. A, B, C, or D. Define credibility. Let's get a bunch of answers here. Good job, Luke. Or Luck. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. So Sanal says A. Do what you say you're going to do. Mylene says C. Interesting, Mylene. Brad says A. Bunch of A's coming in. Bunch of, oh, come on, Michael, you're not fun. Believe it or not, it's C. We need to be deemed believable before people can start trusting us, because they can't trust us unless we're doing things together. Think about the linearity of that. Until we're deemed believable, we can't do things together, and that's when trust gets built. We can have a trusting smile, or or we can give the illusion of trust, but it's actually when people are doing things together that trust comes into it. And I appreciate your comment there, Sanal. So in the beginning of a business relationship, let's really focus on that today. We need to be deemed believable. Think about it. You wouldn't have your jobs if something about you wasn't believable when you first sent a resume in, or you're introduced by someone. So credibility is a one-way avenue to a relationship. We've got to be deemed believable before people can start trusting us. So if you were writing this down, right, and you had these pages in front of you, I'd say write one way here. I'd say write two-way here by integrity, because this is when two people start building that mutual trust. I think it was Michael that referred to that, or Kenneth, I can't remember. And then just being yourself, because everybody else is taken. The sooner we can get to being our authentic selves, like the drum set, right? That's authenticity. Right? When you show people your drum set, that's authenticity. And people love that in most cases. We worry about, oh, well, it's not, how do I remain professional? I think people are so beyond professionalism today because of the pandemic and the fact that we're not meeting as much as we could. Now, I'll give you some good news. I've been traveling the last 6 weeks throughout the States doing live training. So things are really changing here. With groups of people in rooms without masks. Oh my gosh, right? So things are really changing. Still wearing masks on planes, of course, and all that. So I think the future is bright for all of us who like to be out and about. Oh, by the way, I once asked Max, did you drive a taxi all your life? That's probably not the way I should have phrased that question. I probably should have said, so Max, how long have you driven a taxi? And he says, oh, no, and I'm a retired engineer. And there's a whole bunch of stuff about Max in the book, so I don't want to give a whole lot of it away about a bunch of our interactions together. But that's when things kind of added up for me. Oh, you're an engineer. Now I understand the way you conduct yourself and the whole experience. So I don't want to give away more. There's some interesting things about Max in there. And I want you to crack the book when you get it. But when these three qualities come together, that's when this little stuff, relational capital, happens. And in every business relationship you have, you can build relational capital. We got to be deemed believable. We do stuff that makes us trustworthy. We become ourselves as quickly as we possibly can. So with that as a foundation, another question. I think this is my last one. And Sanal, you're right. I'm not Dr. Phil, but a lot of these things apply to personal relationships as well. Okay, chat in. Notice really is underlined, a little hint. When do you think a business relationship really begins? A, B, C, or D? First met. Oh, look at Brad and Kenneth. Rob, you guys are starting to get this, aren't you? There's Loretta. I think I led the witnesses on this one. There's really an argument to be made for any of these four, but in our business, we believe that when someone shares something they're trying to accomplish, something they care about in life, and or something they're not accomplishing, that's when a business relationship really begins. Connections on LinkedIn, meeting people at conferences, running into someone, you know, on the street or in a shopping area, and maybe you exchange a business card. That's really not a business relationship. A business relationship is when you learn GPS and you start being able to interact around their goals, passions, and struggles. So let's talk about relational GPS. We call it locating relational GPS. Well, we all know the GPS systems are the roadmap to our travel success. They've evolved over the years. Well, this concept of relational GPS that I mentioned, I think you'll take this with you today. If we can identify their business and or personal goals, things they care about in life, their passions and or business or personal struggles, there's a great chance we're building relational capital. As we're building relational capital, there's a great chance we can locate more GPS. The more GPS we locate and understand, the better chance we have to actually do some things together. So it's almost the linchpin to when we first interact to actually turning that into benefit for each party. I call it universal because Gen Zs, Gen Ys, Gen Xers, boomers, I've trained everywhere except in the two poles. GPS seems to work everywhere, work there across the world, because almost anything someone shares with you can be categorized as something they're trying to accomplish, something they care about, or something they're struggling with. So we're going to expand on that throughout the rest of our webinar here. I'm checking our time. We're doing really well already. So here's an example. Let's say I'm on the phone with a contractor, or let's say I'm on a Zoom, or let's say I'm sitting in their office. I just put GPS on my notepad down the left side of the page, and almost anything they share, I start noting, oh, that was a goal. Oh, that's why they're not accomplishing the goal. That's a struggle. Oh, she likes the opera, or she likes to golf. It's really hard to find something that won't fit. So with that as a tool, how do we actually build a relationship? What's the process, or as you will say, the process of building a relationship? See, I know my Canadian accents. We call it the relational ladder. And the ladder takes our technical capabilities and our communication skills, our negotiating skills, those kind of things. And it takes us from acquaintances where we find something in common to where we start building trust. We become peers. We're business people masquerading as salespeople. We're industry experts masquerading. We're HVAC experts masquerading as a salesperson. Time is used effectively. We're helping. So we really want to get our relationships into these three rungs. Again, we're going to focus on this first rung, but I just wanted to share the ladder with everybody, get you intrigued about opening the book. And then notice how narrow it is up here. We can't get everybody up here. We want to get them here in the middle. If you can get 80% of your relationship, this is aspirational, right? You don't have enough time to have more than 5 or 10 people up here in your whole career. This is where you want to get 80, 85%. So how do we get to here? I want to go back to here. And the ladder is the process or process for building a relationship that lasts. But in the time we have, I felt the most effective thing, and from the experience I've got doing so many of these, that the first rung would be the place to start. So I have another audience participation question for you all. On a scale of 0 to 100, what percentage of decision makers, I'm using that term generically, expect you to truly understand how you impact the outcomes of their business? Chat in a percentage. What percentage expect you to really understand how you help them? I wish it was 100, Brad. That's kind of tough because it's a survey. There's always somebody who doesn't answer it, right? Peter says, hey, welcome aboard, Peter. Ken says 70. Sonal says 90 to 100 if they do business with you. Right now, they should know that, right? Loretta's saying she's at 100. The survey, this was HubSpot, was 85%. Luck, 75, pretty close, right? So 85% decision makers expect you all and us in our business here to understand how your business works, how their business works, and how what we provide impacts them, not just creates a comfortable work environment or a comfortable home. How does it really impact? Now, how many salespeople can actually do that on a scale of 0 to 100? There's an 85% expectation. What percentage of all y'all, I was in the South last week. Peter's setting the bar pretty low. Anybody else? Robert's setting it high. Michael's circling around the answer here. Let me see if I get one more answer. Luke, 50 or Luck, less than 14%. So the bar is so low for all of us to really, truly create relationships and understand our customers' business. They have a high expectation. We're not performing. And again, it's a survey. I'm not saying everyone on here is not performing, but work with me on the data, work with me on the premise. So how do we perform? How do we get off of that first rung, whether it be virtually, in person, however we're doing it? How do we start a new relationship? We call it a targeted conversation. And part of it is a plan before we get into the conversation. I worked with Loretta and Lorelei. We just came up with a very simple example here. Contractor, they're looking for go-to resources. That's one of their goals. We haven't even met with this person yet, but that's probably what they're looking for. They're looking to grow their business. They're struggling with stuff that vendors ship to them. They want their life to be simplified. They can have one vendor to help them with everything, or everything on the side that you provide. That would be a lot. That would eliminate a struggle. This is we call this a buyer persona. And then what questions are you going to ask in your interaction that gets to some of that stuff that you help them with, gets to some of those goals and struggles? So I have some simple ones for you here. We call them strong discovery questions. Some of these are rapport-based, some are business-based. I really like the first question. What do you find is your biggest accomplishment in the last 4 to 6 months? Your business's biggest accomplishment? A lot of us lead with, what are you struggling with? Because then we can go solve the problem for it. I feel like I'd suggest you pivot away from what are you struggling with, and we start with what's going on that's good. Because then you can pivot to what's going to hold you back to maintain that momentum. And then I have a couple of, there's a LinkedIn question here. I'm sure the PowerPoint will go out with the recording, so everybody will have this. You might make a personal connection to somebody you both know, or why do you know each other? How's your business changed since COVID? Everybody's business has changed. You can go down a whole lot of ways with that. One of my other favorite questions I have up here is, how is this business environment impacting your business? Now we're shifting out of pandemic into this war over in Ukraine, and how that's going to affect a whole bunch of things. So you can ask a potential customer, how is the business environment impacting your business at any time? It's another one of my favorite go-to questions. And Robert, I would pay off the biggest challenge after you find out about the biggest accomplishment. Let's get them talking positively first. I was trained to get them talking negatively. And over the years and all the stuff I've done, I'm like, hey, let's make them happy first. And then what are some great questions that you can ask a contractor? And we're not going to chat those in today, but are you prepared with that big question? The one that the previous vendor didn't ask them. It may not have anything to do with HVAC, right? It could have everything to do with industry, or something about the specific business that they're doing construction in. That maybe you learned something that morning and you say, have you heard about this? We want to have a strong discovery question. And you know what? You might only need one, because here's a simple way to take one question that strikes a chord with that contractor, we call it ask, ask, ask. And the simple way is, let's say he or she just talked about it for 5 minutes. Why is that? Or how come that happened? Probably going to talk more. Can you tell me more about that? And they're going to probably talk a little more. Is there anything else I need to know about that? You can ask one great discovery question. Do ask, ask, ask. During your ask, 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 you're going to get more information, and you can do ask, ask, ask again. So the first discovery question is the way to go. Get that question, distinguish yourself with that question. Max was great at asking questions. He built credibility. He asked different conversations to salespeople than he asked to kids, than he asked to grandparents, than he asked to executives. Do you have go-to questions for the 3 or 4 people that you interact the most with in the marketplace? What are your 3 or 4 go-to discovery questions? We distinguish ourselves with discovery questions. Now, maybe this might come later, but let's pretend this is one of these great conversations and you got to qualify them now. 4 simple questions again. Is there a budget for this? Am I talking to the right person? Do I clearly understand what they're articulating to me from a needs standpoint? And what's the timing around this? When we do training around this for sales teams, this actually becomes part of each sales rep's questioning of themselves before they forecast for that month or that quarter, whatever the time frame is. And we actually create a discipline. If all 4 aren't answered, don't forecast it. The problem is sales managers have caught on to this now, and they're asking you guys these questions anyway. So, but again, qualify yourself before you forecast. And again, this is more time with the prospective customer. And I give you everybody a little template so you could, write your qualifying questions on here. You might expand on the way I ask those questions for your industry. Look, I love that. You need a plan before simply drilling questions. We're going through mechanical process here today, and you're making a great there's a subtlety to this. We're walking through a deck. We're not in a room with each other. I want to try to provide you with some tools, but planning it out and having a plan, that's what this is about. Great job. Great job. And then the last thing is, you've been so brilliant in this meeting. So again, this is not the way it happens, but let's pretend you asked a great discovery question. This person riffed on it for a while. You did ask, ask, ask. They're ready to buy. I know that doesn't happen. Just stay with me. You qualify them, but they stop. They go, wait a minute. I'm really happy with this other vendor. So why should I switch? Why should I switch? And we call that a value statement. And I forgot, I do have one more question for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 is the best description of a value statement. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Which one? Ken's out of the race, out of the gates fast. So everybody caught on, it's 5. But if I was one-on-one with each of you right now, and I said, hey, so why should I buy from your company? Or why should I buy from you? I wonder if you'd start off with 1, 2, 3, or 4. I wonder if you might. This is the holy grail of selling, because we spent all this planning time. We had a great interaction. Maybe we've had a series of interactions. We're working our way up the ladder, but they haven't signed on with us yet. And they go, well, it's going to be hard to tell the other guy that, I've got to switch. So why should I switch? So we call that a value statement. And it's a statement, it's not a paragraph. It starts with their goal. Remember we talked about common goals? Good job, Robert. There's some good senses of humor on here, Loretta. It's a clear statement through the eyes of the contractor that has something that increases, decreases, assists, eliminates, ensures, whatever verb you want to use. And I have a template for you here that gets you to a value statement. You know, before we cite a value statement, again, this is planning. We have benefits. I call them sources of value because, you know, I'm a facilitator, so I have to come up with a different term for benefit, right? I call benefits sources of value. These are things on your website. These are things you say. Can you convert what's on your website, or what you say, into language that they get? So if Robert says to me, well, you know, our reliability is #1 in the region, I might say, so what? Because I don't know whether reliability means you're going to call me back in an hour, you're going to deliver the same day. Well, you know, what is reliability to me as that customer? And I'll use an American version, not American, wrong, but a US version, right? Made in the USA. What if I went into a purchasing manager and I said, well, our stuff's made in the USA. And he or she says, well, I like German engineering. I'm done, right? But maybe I might ask, instead of just coming out with my source of value, I might say, well, where do you typically source your parts? Where are they sourced from? Well, we get a lot of things from Germany. Oh, so last 12 to 18 months, how have deliveries been for you? Oh my gosh, everything's stuck in the ports. Well, while we're not German engineered, we're made in the USA. We have 3 distribution centers within 100 miles of each of your 3 factories, or each of your 3 plants. That's the language of the customer. Not made in the USA, not made in Germany, not reliable. So again, here's another tool for you to take away. I'm looking at our time. I don't think I have time to actually have you put some in here, but think about what you're saying. Just like I could have asked Max differently instead of, you know, did you drive a taxi all your life? I could have asked him, how long have you driven a taxi, right? The way we describe our benefits, we want to convert it to the language of the customer. So then we can write a value statement around that. And here's our go-to value statement template. So let's say a customer, the same scenario, a customer asks us, so why should we switch to you? What can you do for us? So I'd like you to give this a try right now, okay? Simply think about a current opportunity you have, and they just said to you, why should we work with you? And you write, you chat in, we help you, and you don't do all 3. Don't do increase, assist, ensure, eliminate, decrease. Chat in, we help you something through. And I love to see your value statements. We help you increase something, decrease something, assist with something, eliminate something, guarantee something through. So let's see what y'all come back with. I'm going to give you a full minute to think that through, because you don't have a lot of time when you're with that customer. Sorry. So productivity and efficiency. So we help you increase productivity, ensure efficiency. We help you grow your business through our having what you need when you need it. One statement, the only thing the business owner or contractor heard was grow your business. No, they're going to grow my business. Good job, Michael. Good job, Mylene. Let's see if we get a couple more. And then we'll bring it all home for everybody. See if we can do a little Q&A. We help you ensure success of your project, right to the point with the best local support, right on point. Loretta, we help you get your voice heard. Here we go for HRIA. Beautiful, Loretta. We help you get your voice heard at government levels through member consultation. Beautiful. That's a great value statement for the association. No charge for that, Loretta. As others are thinking, this is a moment of truth. This is critical. You've done everything right. But now you get asked the tough question. You know, I've got to go tell another vendor that I'm going to start working with you all. Tell me why. Tell me why. Convince me. Help reconvince me. And I find that we are not really that good at this. We are not that good at this. We start talking about how long our company's been in business and our resources, but that's all fine if that comes after we talk about what we're going to do for them. So think about your value statements. And again, for each buyer persona, we should understand what they're struggling with, what their goals are. We should have some great discovery questions. Think about ask for when you're actually engaging with them. And then we should have a value statement ready. A contractor value statement, maybe there's someone that maybe a CFO value statement. I don't know the different personas everyone speaks with here. All right, well, thank you all for bearing with my exercises. Think about your taxi cab going forward. It's a very simple metaphor. What's my cab ride like? And how am I impacting the people I'm riding around in my taxi cab? Think about what you want to work on. If you named your taxi, what would it be called? What would your taxi be called? Quick summary page for everybody here. Leading sales professionals, you're a true resource. You're a true resource to that buyer, that decision maker. And I call those Monday through Friday moments of influence. Are our interactions, is there an element of relevance other than, hey, I'm checking in? Is there an element of relevance in our interactions? Try to think that through. We know the industry. Are we demonstrating that? Are we demonstrating that through the questions we ask, information we share? Again, this supports the first point. What's the best way to launch and continue that relationship? Max did it through questions. And are we expanding our relationships within that account? Maybe it's an owner, family-owned business. Are we expanding our relationships with other family members? Maybe it's a corporation. Are we expanding our relationships beyond just the CEO or the main person we're talking with? That's what we call it value first, but that's what a true resource does. I really don't have time to tell you another Max story. I thought I might. You'll learn, again, everybody's going to get a copy of the book, so an e-copy of the book. We can't ship 25 of them or 23 into Canada. It'll take forever for us. But if we think about Max in terms of business performance, he had, I think we want all these things. Increased customer spend, you know, he was getting more from relationships like mine. I would take my family on vacation and he would take us to the airport. I would refer him to other people who would want to go back and forth to the airport. He moved the needle. Oh, you know what? I failed to share a stat with everybody. Decision makers. I plugged it in and it didn't appear for some reason. I'm sorry. In sales meetings, the buyer perceives 6 minutes of value. 6 minutes of value in a meeting. Think about that. They perceive that much value. Not much. He created a competitive-proof experience across all his targeted buyers. And he just made everybody's day a little bit better. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The real secret to success is this. Let's put the relationships first. Let's find a way in. It's been a pleasure being with everybody. Again, crack the book. You're going to get some really great stories about Max. And I hope you'll take Max with you in some small way on your own journey to business relationships that last. So thanks, everybody. And I think we're going to do another little Q&A session here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ed. You know, I found this truly fascinating. I really appreciated the learnings from, you know, mixing your buyer expectation with goals. I thought that was, you know, it seems simple enough. We should be doing it. And sometimes these things just need to be reinforced. I'm going to just open it up. If somebody wants to throw a question in the Q&A section or in the chat, feel free to do that. And, you know, if you're shy, feel free to reach out to Ed directly through his LinkedIn account. And it is in the chat here. We will have this recording available for everybody. And you can certainly refer back to it anytime afterwards. I really would appreciate if you could take your time to fill out the survey to help us improve, find out what it is that you liked. I see some notes that are coming in. Everyone's saying thank you. And
I answered all their questions, Loretta.
Yeah, you did. So I think, you know, Ed, do you want to say any last words? And I think we're getting a lot of thank yous right now.
I know. I appreciate everyone's kind words. And there's some great stuff, again, about Max in the book and where he is today. So I think you might be intrigued about that, and what he really did in life. That's also included in there. He never fails to intrigue people. And I wouldn't be here today if I didn't. But maybe my parting comment, Loretta, is I wouldn't be with everybody today if I didn't adjust my schedule to get in his taxi on that Thursday, 2.5 weeks later. So we've got to get on the ladder. We've got to take every opportunity. We have to be open to the forces that come at us. Sometimes some really great things come from meetings we didn't even want to go to. So I think that would be my parting comment. Let's be open to building relationships with everybody. And I really would invite you to link in with me. I think you'll find value in the stuff that we share, and hopefully, you know, we can become friends over LinkedIn and stay connected through the rest of our careers. So, and thank you, Loretta, Lorelei, and HRAI for hosting me today.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody as well. And please remember to fill out the survey when you do get it. It helps us figure out what kind of other presentations we could be doing. Thank you again. Thank you, Ed.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.